Welcome to the One Step Ahead series, part storytelling, part podcast, and entirely a celebration. This project is a way to honor the wise beings and medicines that serve us in creating a life that is aligned with the unique beings we are, and the values that connect us to ourselves, to others, to our precious planet, and energies in the universe. You're invited to share in the intimate conversations that arise when we ponder and explore the questions: what does living in alignment feel like? What does it look like? How do we find our way, and who are the guides that can help us discover and deepen our understanding of ourselves? If you're a curious seeker, if you've known that something about your circumstances is not quite the right fit and wondered, what else is there? This is a place to open, expand, and explore. One step ahead of our past, of where we've been, one step closer to where we want to be, where we're meant to be, finding alignment. Always, still, putting one foot in front of the other. Welcome, friends. Welcome. The autumn season of OSA has been a little bit wonky, but here we are. I say wonky. We'll talk about that a little bit. Recording our season finale. It always sounds so funny because when I think of season finale, I think like big and colorful and extravaganzas and cliffhangers. I'm like, yeah, no, we're just going to get together and talk about how things are going. So to those of you who have been along for the journey with us, welcome. For those of you who just happen to be finding us today, I have a hunch it's going to be a fascinating conversation. We are arriving in our full authentic expression of ourselves, and I'm going to talk a bit about the energies and everything that's here. And it's good to see you, friend.
You too.
Yeah. Your mug looks like it's got something delicious and
it's
so cozy.
It's just my usual soy milk. It's kind of like a latte, but not quite as much milk as you'd normally put in a latte, and it's not espresso, it's just coffee, but it's lovely nonetheless.
Yum. I resisted the urge of going out to get a Tim's tea. Tim Hortons steep tea that's like what I go for when I want a treat. And then I remembered that I didn't really want to be sipping out of my red cup. And
yeah, that's fair.
I'm saving that as a bit of a reward later when I go out and pop to the library and go get dog food. Pardon?
Interesting that you say that, because I went for a little forest wander this morning with the puppies, which is good because now Champ's adequately exhausted on the couch. But I was going to stop at my favorite little cafe on the way back, which always ends up I spend up so much money there because they have the funnest trinkets and baubles, like so much stuff.
I love coffee shops like that.
No, it's like Christmas. I know they're gonna have all the Christmas stuff, and they're gonna have the jelly cat stuff, and oh God, it's really hard for me to resist myself. But I was like, okay, if there's parking, the universe is telling me yes. If no, keep driving. And universe is like, keep driving, girl. So here I am with my homemade coffee, my cute little mug.
Cheers to taking care of yourself and for saving and continuing that. I love the feeling of anticipation. I sometimes get disappointed when good things happen too quickly because I don't get to look forward to them for as long. I don't know. There's something a little bit torturous and delicious in anticipating things. So I'm just thinking how excited it's going to be to get there next time.
There's this fine like art to that. So having a conversation this week with somebody about the difficulty of just allowing yourself to be in the whatever it is, the excitement, the happiness, the joy, and how we're always just waiting to get to the end. And it's so relatable. I feel that way with my art. I've yet to find this really cool place, which I assume one day I will, where I'm like in the middle of the art. I'm really just like, oh, this is so good. I'm like, how many hours until I get to the end of this project? What's it going to look like? What are people going to think about? I'm like, just stop.
Yeah, it's the journey, right? You just made me now think of a number of folks in the artist way. The current group is in week 9. Week 9 is a challenging week. It's the week that we're invited to take a closer look at who we've been in the previous 8 weeks. And there are a lot of folks in there who the morning pages, write 3 pages every morning, 3 pages. The goal for so many, I think, still is filling those 3 pages, and then the job is done. And I get such a kick out of when people post and say, I just got going on this and I wrote 5 pages and I just lost track of time. And my heart just kind of like, oh yeah, that's how I dream of a journal practice being. Not that we write 5 pages every day, but that we sit down when we're called to sit and write, and we choose to consider it complete when it feels complete, whether it's a third of a page or 10 pages, whatever it is, we get to feel into, yeah, this feels complete, got those thoughts out, ready to move into the next thing. But when we're first developing the practice, it's really good to have that box, and we know we're aiming to fill that box because that helps build the muscle of it. But it's really sweet when people come out the other side and go, holy smokes, I just kept writing and writing and all this stuff came out. I love hearing those stories.
My automatic thought when you said that at the beginning, I was like, is there a requirement in the book of how big the journal is? Because I could fill 3 pages of like a 6 by 9.
That's she doesn't specify. Julia Cameron doesn't specify. And I actually had a laugh because I waved these pages in front of you, right? My favorite paper to write on is newsprint. Lined newsprint. It's what I learned how to write rough copies on in school. We wrote rough copies on this, and then we wrote the good copies on the long, fancy foolscap paper, they called it.
Oh, right.
But I write really small and these pages are really big. So I figured out over time that about 30 minutes of writing was about right. Because if I take 30 minutes, I can fill 3 of these pages. No problem. Very different.
That's different. And also, does your hand not hurt?
So here's I love that you asked that, because I'm cooking up what I think is going to be a really, really cool workshop. And I have read the first few days of my writing pages, and the workshop that I want to do is, yes, absolutely, the hand gets cramped up, but the hand gets cramped up when the arm is tight, when the shoulder is tight, when our bodies are bracing, and we can actually do mindful writing by staying very present in our body. And so being really aware of the posture that we're holding, but really, really being conscious of the energy in the arm. And if you start to feel a bit of a cramp in your hand, check, and you're probably tense all the way through. So then with a little gentle invitation, we can tune in and see, like, where are your shoulders? How are your shoulders? Can you invite those to soften? It's a writing meditation. And I do that when I write. And I wrote about that in my very first few pages of morning pages of doing the artist way. I was like, oh, I'm noticing this. And in the current journal that I've got, I think it's 3 big pages that are all written out of a guided writing meditation.
I am so excited for you. This really lands because I'm thinking back to, years of me. I'm a lefty. My page has to be completely turned sideways in order to write. And it's not done great things for my body.
Have I shared with you my nugget for lefties and journal writing?
No.
Maybe not. Because I like writing in my books like backwards. I like flipping them
Actually, no,
down.
I think you said you start at the back and you write.
And you can write forward. Yeah. And so for lefties, that means that you're not having to deal with the pages in the same way.
Very interesting. We're going to have to revisit this another time because I can't.
I think it would be great to do a bit of a writing experiment. Part of that maybe mindful writing is for people to play with their books. Like, how awkward does it feel? You've got this beautiful journal book. What happens if I ask you to flip to a random page in the middle and write on that? Right? Like, parts of the body right away, they're like, what happens if I ask you to flip it over and write that way? Just to play with the resistance of it. But it actually makes it kind of fun and more interesting as a little book to keep, because it's all like almost like a secret code and only you understand what you've put where.
And
anyway.
exciting to get to that page as you write and write and write. And then you're like, oh yeah, I remember this entry and like what's
Yes.
happening when I did this. I think you're really on to your magic here, Sheen. It feels so aligned for
And
you.
the ideas just keep coming. Like
Good.
every time we got a new journal, we just flipped to a handful of random pages and wrote ourselves a little love note. Because when you were just saying that, right? Because then you're writing, you're doing all this, and then you land on a page and oh, great, somebody's already written here. I don't have to fill that one. It's done. But look at the sweet note that I left myself. And here I am. And I've done all this good writing work and now this is waiting for me. I think that would be really sweet. I might try that.
Or even every time you're having a rough go and you're feeling down on yourself, flip a quarter way into your book and write something kind to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. When I do my journal writing, I know I've talked about this before. I love my colored pens, but the lightest, brightest pink is reserved for, I think of it as a combination, like the voice of my angels and guides comes through in pink. Sometimes my highest self comes through in pink. And so I can literally fan through my journal and these love letters, little pink notes pop out from these beings who love me and encourage me to keep doing the good work. It just melts my heart when I could get lost in that stuff. So yes, alignment, feeling very aligned. And I think what we've just been doing is a really beautiful example of going with the flow of the energy. My girlfriend told me this morning, Mercury is going into retrograde. And I was like, oh my gosh, haven't things been chaotic enough? And everything about, is it Pluto moving into Aquarius? And like there's a lot of things happening celestially, and the waves don't seem to be getting any gentler since the last time we talked about being in the waves. So the energy still feels pretty mighty. And you mentioned at the beginning of the call that you're in a, I just need to go with the flow, feeling into what feels right, not sweating anything that doesn't actually require me to do it.
Yeah, it's been an interesting shift. I'm very aware of all of the different people I follow and their predictions of what's happening with all of the planetary realignments and such. And I've had some very interesting moments of reflection lately where I almost just want to go clear the slate again.
Mm. Can you talk a little bit more about what's on the slate currently that you
Yeah,
would?
when I say slate, I mean like completely clear the people who I've allowed to influence me.
Wow.
Yeah. And for me, I think that comes down to self-trust. There's moments where I'm aware that the subconscious takes on so much more than we are aware of in our conscious being.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter who you are and how self-aware you are as you're scrolling. There's stuff coming in that you might not want to come in. And I think one of the things that has been really present for me, November, I chose to I felt so called to purge. Gone
Mm.
through pretty much every room, almost. Just need to tackle my son. That's a whole other, he's very emotionally attached to his items.
That's a team
Um,
project, that one.
yeah, well, it's almost not because he's so emotionally attached, but we're just, we're going with the flow on that one too. But I've purged every single house, gone through, cleaned, got rid of things, realigned things, and that has felt so good. And at the same time, my body's like, I think you need to purge this other thing too. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. And I perhaps the reason is something to do with those influences that I feel make me question on a very, very deep rooted way that my worthiness or compare.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like one of those pivotal moments where now that you have the awareness of it, there's a spotlight on it. You can't not know it. you can't not be aware and choose to maybe work with it. Yeah.
There's something to do with this perfection that so many people portray in their online profiles. And I reflect that back on myself. But, I wonder how other people perceive me. I'm not the most vulnerable in my sharing when it comes to my business page, and I'm okay with that. But I also try to show up just in my authentic self. Because there's been a lot of that coming forward of like, are these people truly somebody I want to have as an influence or even a mentor in my life if they represent themselves as so absolutely perfect?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why it's so strong, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
I think that you're picking up on a thread of what makes some people kindred spirits and others not.
mm,
I think that there are circles of individuals who live in that energy. And so for them, they would feel like they're with kindred spirits. For others who don't share that energy, or who I kind of think of it as, this is going to sound a bit judgy, so I'm going to apologize for that, but I'm going to just own it. I think for humans who are deeply introspective and compassionate towards others, there's a different level of awareness and a lot more noise around it. Because if I could just get up in the morning and put myself together and walk out into the world and have this perfect mask on, and that felt maintainable to me, I don't know that I would ever think or choose to do anything otherwise. But because that doesn't come naturally to me, there's a lot of noise around it. There's a lot of comparing myself to others and noticing. But I think that there are very genuinely, I think that people that to me, they don't feel authentic. I think that in that is the current authentic expression of themselves to the degree that they're capable of expressing themselves. Did that make sense? I don't know
I
that for a
totally get
fact. It's probably I tend to like to see the world through rosy glasses and so assume the best of people sometimes, or a rosy side of people. Can I ask you a question though, related?
yeah, yeah.
Because I find it particularly potent that this is coming up for you, given your own history long before social media and showing up there. I think you show up there. I know you, and when I see you, I feel your authenticity. I feel like, yes, this is the Sabrina I know and love, the same person I have a conversation with here, the same person I chat with on the phone. But I think there's probably a level of complexity that I can't even fathom, given the degree that you have been a perfectionist all along. Like you've talked about your early career, you've talked about, your wardrobe. And
Yeah.
so this is I totally get it when you say like it's deep. It's really deep.
Mm.
And it's almost like Sabrina today says, this is all still a part of me. But when I look at Sabrina then, like we are completely different. Love her, thank her, and yay her. But that sounds like some heavy, heavy excavating to do.
It's interesting timing because again, coming back to like this astrology stuff of recognizing that I'm one of those cardinal signs that are making this like massive exodus from this 20 whatever year pattern that's been happening. And so I reflect on that and go, I wonder if this is related in terms of like just being more authentic and being very boundaried about how you are going to present yourself to the world and what you're going to allow in.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
So much more skillful discernment and power to make those choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been good though, not in like I'm in a, dark night of the soul type of way, but in more of like I'm just really want to get some shit done kind of way.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
as we're moving into this new age of Aquarius more fulsomely, I can't help but wonder, the energies are just like, we got to get all that shit done because we're going this way now. We just like, I walked past my games room, guest room, laundry room today, and I thought, dang, it was only weeks ago that this room was clear, and now everything's piling back up. And this desperate urge to go in there and unpile some piles. Yeah, 2025 is looming as a really big year. How, because it's funny, because we've been talking about our year kind of in the seasons. And so if we think
Mhm.
winter is going to be the fourth quarter, well, we're still just in the early mid-autumn. But looking towards 2025, it feels like there's something really big there. Do you feel that at all? I mean, that's vague, but
I don't necessarily, I wouldn't call it big. I think what it feels like for me is a really beautiful opportunity.
Mm.
Yeah. Right? Like we know we've all been in it, whether you're like just waking up like Sleeping Beauty and you're like, the fuck's going on? Or whether you're like, well, this is like my ninth dark night of the soul. Here we go. You know, I think we all feel that it's like, whoo, okay, something's changing. I'm seeing it with moms at the school. I'm like cheerleading them, like, oh, I'm so excited for you and like this new journey that you're on. And like, who knows why they woke up, but they're clearly doing some really, really drastically different things with their lives. I know. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. And so it feels like all of that is just like moving in this really beautiful way. And it's just an opportunity. At least that's how I'm looking at it. That's how I'm trying to explore it with clients, and using that energy to really figure out what is in the best alignment for you to have a great year.
Mm.
And we're not talking about, I think, the classical things that people do when it's like, let's manifest or let's vision board. We're going really deep with it to figure out the energy bodies and your values and your
Mm.
ego and what's holding you back from a fear perspective, so that we can really cultivate 2025 to feel good, to not to drown out the noise and not be affected by all of the craziness.
Mhm. That it's so noisy. It's so noisy. And internally, we at least have some, well, we all, I think, have the capability of learning how to get to know ourselves. And so working, for example, in a program like yours, where you're looking at the energy bodies, you're looking at the ego, you're looking at all of these different parts of self that can show up, that when someone who knows how and can help teach us how to slow things down and notice
Mhm.
the noise that's inside, we can start to also cultivate practices that help slow it down, that help quiet things, which in my world has made it possible for me to be then actually more expressive and engaging in the outside world,
Mhm.
because I have a greater capacity to receive all of the input and stimulation and still have enough room inside to process it and formulate a response. But for many, many years, I was almost invisible in much of my outside existence. And it was because I needed every little bit of energy and attention to deal with the ping ponging that was going on in here, when it felt like there was all this ping ponging going on out here. And it can just be so overwhelming. Um, and when somebody comes in and then says, well, you just need to script about it, or you haven't learned how to manifest yet, until it got quiet enough in me to actually even contemplate what those things were, that they didn't stand a chance. And in fact, I felt like a bit of a, well, I can't do it. This isn't for me. Other people are magical. I'm not. It's like, well, no, I'm just not. I'm not there yet. I'm doing the work, but manifestation can be a really long game.
For sure. And what I hear, and I went through this at the beginning of my journey too, is that there are a lot of people who talk about manifestation and sell manifestation as this really very simple, easy task. Just write it down and it will happen.
Or write it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. Yeah.
Yeah. But I actually think there has to be some intentionality behind that.
Absolutely. And a receptivity to it. If the person wishing for it doesn't actually fully, wholeheartedly know that it is meant for them, any doubt that can get in the way of it. I have also learned that,
safe, right? I think that speaks to
oh
like
yeah,
safety of it, right? Well, I can have all these grand dreams of, let's say building the six-figure business. We've probably talked about this previously. And if you don't have the capacity in your nervous system to hold that, then there will be some sort of self-sabotage. And we've got to grow that. We've got to stretch and we've got to expand it.
yeah. Classic story of the lottery winners who should have set for life and very short period of time destitute, right?
Yeah.
Their nervous system wasn't prepared, and all of, yeah, the baby steps and slow steps are like, we accomplish so much. When it feels like we're just moving slowly internally, our landscapes have much more opportunity to do the processing and so that we can actually think about, well, what is it I really want? As opposed to, I'm going to script all of the things that society tells me I want, my parents have told me that I want, my kids are telling me that they want. I'm just going to script about that. I don't want any of that, but I'm going to pour all of my energy into it. And then when I don't get it, I'm going to just say, see, what a waste of time, as opposed to, well, what is it that I want? What's my heart? What do I wholeheartedly believe is here for me? And if you can get into that mind space, I feel like I'm sort of starting to get there. I tried scripting last year. I was script, you know what I was scripting that by such and such a date, I want to be approved for disability support. No part of me genuinely wanted to be on disability support. But in my head, the money provided safety. That's what the first priority needed to be. And so that's what I was shooting for. And I scripted that shit for weeks. And then on the other side of it, when that didn't happen, I had the opportunity to then realize I do not want to live my life trying to convince other people I am broken. So no wonder my scripting didn't work, but I didn't know that during the whole time. Like Sheena had her best intentions in there. And it was only when it didn't come to fruition that I had the opportunity to say, well, thank goodness, because that would have been a trajectory that I would have spent months in. And trying to convince people that you're not well when all you want to do is get well is so counterintuitive.
Yeah. Pretty demoralizing at the same time.
Oh, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm recalled to think of a time where I went to that retreat I've told you about many times, and I came out of it, and we had to come up with a sentence that we were going to really embody for the year, and mine was around peace. And I got home, I got COVID, my cat died. I was like, just back in it, right? Like back in the chaos, back in the sadness, the self-pity, the grief. And I sat there for a really, really long time. And it helped form this person who recognized that that's actually a choice. It's a choice to stay in that for a really long time, or it's a choice to really allow yourself to feel it and come out the other side. And that was actually what helped me recognize peace. right? Peace was letting go all of these things that kept me trapped in this idea that I shouldn't have to feel the pain, or someone should take the pain away for me. Yeah. But, I would have written a million times, I choose peace, I choose peace, I choose peace. And I didn't fucking know how to choose peace.
Mm-hmm.
My body was like, no, we choose chaos. So much easier.
Yeah.
Tricky.
Such beautiful examples of the contrast that we need to do the growing that we're meant to be doing. Right? Yeah.
I'm curious to know from your perspective, you've been busy with your writing programs,
Mm.
your learning lab. Are we calling them workshops?
Aligned Learning Lab workshops. Yeah, actually, I had one very small workshop so
What,
far.
what did you host
Yeah,
today?
the Artist's Way.
Oh,
That's
the artist way. Okay. I wasn't
online.
sure what it was today, if it was the artist way or if you were doing just why my brain, I'm sorry, it's not working. This sort of second offering, which is you hosting workshop, like space
Yeah.
to work.
Yeah, so everyone who's in the Artist Way right now has the invitation to hop into. I've been calling it the writing room, but
Yeah.
people who have been working in there have been calling it the working room. And this morning I was like, the lab's going to be open, and I thought the lab that kind of covers it. Aligned Learning
It
Lab,
really does.
the lab's
Okay.
going to be open. So yeah, I've been doing that too.
Okay.
That's why I've
Let
been
me
doing this
reframe my question. As you have been hosting the artist way, offering the lab access, what have you been doing in your own personal day to day to feel aligned with the season of Samhain, or fall, as we traditional West Coasters will call it?
Yeah, thanks for bringing our conversation around to that. That's a really sweet question because there's been a lot. James and I, my love, we put together a fall feast, and we did this last weekend. We used recipes from Carmen Spaniola's The Spirited Kitchen, which is a really beautiful, it's a cookbook. It's a cookbook that is centered on the wheel of the year, the turning of the wheel. And so
So fun.
yeah, each of the 8 is highlighted with recipes, history, crafty projects, just all kinds of really wonderful ideas for really celebrating and honoring the turning of the wheel. And so I I started it actually like the just weeks before Just passed in 2022. I prepared one of the recipes for Samhain, and I was very excited. I was going to, follow along all year. This was before even I was tuned in with Eileen and her Wheel of the
That's so
Year.
cool.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a Carmen Spaniola fan. I was in her community way back, and she kind of sparked the witchiness in me,
Mhm.
that I started to say, okay, there's room for me to learn more about what this means. And a big part of that, as we know through Eileen, is celebrating the Wheel of the Year. So James and I actually we did a whole pork roast, and we bought a pomegranate. We had pomegranate seeds and mélange of mushrooms, and it was really lovely. It was also our way of having sort of a special date night to celebrate our 23rd anniversary from our first real date. And so that was really fun. I've been having a bit of a hard time with work. And honestly, last week had a couple of like burn it to the ground kind of days, and have had to be really mindful of noticing that that's there, noticing that there can be periods of time when I'm tired, when that can kind of take over, and worrying thoughts. So work feels like it's been moving quite slowly. And I tried to kind of dial things back. For example, I've been almost invisible on social media, aside from sharing about OSA. And I'm giving myself full permission for that. I don't have the capacity for all the things. And
Why would you? This is all so new for you.
Right, right. And so on the note of new, I went for a face-to-face coffee date with a contact who I've met over Zoom earlier in the year. She lives nearby. We hit it off right
Mm.
away. And before the conversation was over, she had invited me to be her plus one to attend a wonderful conference in Arizona in December. I leaned into that and I said, "Can I drive from Phoenix to Sedona? Like, could I hop over there after the conference?" I said, if I can do that, it might be impossible for me to say no. And sure enough, 2 hours away is Sedona. So James and I had lots of talks about that. There's it got a little bit confusing, but it's all sorted out. All the travel plans are made. I said yes. I wake up a lot of mornings now where, for example, yesterday, you're going to be driving a car by yourself in Arizona. You know you can't stop at any of the rest stops because you can't be a single girl on the highway by yourself.
What
And
the fuck?
I said, thank you very much, all of the voices of concern who have taught me this to be very aware as a female traveler, but I'm renting a car and I'm going to stop wherever I damn well want to. And if it's that or drive off the road because I'm staring at everything, I'm going to stop. But there's been a lot of like those kinds of, we're making a pretty significant financial investment in that. So then that's coming up. But at the same time, yay, I accepted an exciting invitation to do something that last year I couldn't convince myself to do it. And that would have been to see Abraham and Esther Hicks. Whereas this year it feels like, no, this is something that I can lean into. And so I'm acknowledging that all of these thoughts and it's all part of it. And yay, because the discomfort means I'm growing. And Sheena, who comes back from having her solo sleepover at a beautiful bed and breakfast in Sedona, is going to come back saying, look at what I just did for myself by myself. And so I'm
Oh
really
my God. It's
about
so,
that.
I'm so excited for you for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Like even just celebrating that you got to a place where you want to burn it all down. Like that's the time for celebration. I genuinely think that. Because it means that what you're doing is working,
Mhm.
right? And you're like, you are pushing yourself so far outside of the comfort zone
Yeah.
that yeah, it's mentally exhausting. It's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So I keep reminding myself of that compassion and create ease where you can, because there's some intensity in other areas that's a little bit unavoidable right now. And that's okay.
And you're going on a solo road trip. That is so empowering. Oh,
It's brand new for me. So the fact that I'm doing it just months before turning 50,
same.
somewhere where, I mean, I see pictures of Utah, Arizona. My heart says we need to be there. When I go to my power place in a guided visualization, it's in the desert, which I find fascinating because I'm a sea baby. I want to be by the sea. I thrive being by bodies of water, but there's some really powerful part of me that places me in the desert. So yeah, it's all just feeling really, really juicy. And then as of yesterday, I'm officially a published author. And that's, I've got a bunch of imposter syndrome stuff going on. I'm, and yet part of me is like, this is a really big deal. And I keep thinking about Jess. And, she said, we can figure out how to do this. We're going to do this and we're going to have our stuff in there. And now look, it's there with Yaya's Sister Creations stamped right on it. And I'm really proud of myself. 2 years is a long freaking time to build one little book. But I had to live through those 2 years for my first book to be what it actually turned out to be. And so I really love that for me and for what I was able to share and create. But it it is a big deal as a little girl who, yeah, had big dreams of, I'm going to write books that people are going to read and my name's going to be in the cover and all of these things. And so there's a physical energy up-leveling, I feel, that's kind of taking place of shedding an older, not yet published identity so that I can step more fully and excitedly and joyfully into the published identity. But it's surprising how discombobulating that feels.
It's a lot. You've accomplished a lot in a very short period.
Mhm.
Even if it feels like, oh, it's been 2 years, like to still for it to all come to fruition from August to now
Mhm.
feels like a lot. It's a big deal.
Mhm.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, friend. Thank you, friend. I attribute so much of my being here to this project, to you and I showing up season after season and having all of these incredible conversations with so many different perspectives on what alignment looks like. It's kept it so very present for me, which has made it, I think, and I can't help but think that part of me knew that when I dreamed up this project was, okay, we're moving into this phase. And you know what would be really helpful is if we could just keep talking about it with really cool people who are also talking about it, because it's made it almost impossible for me to backslide. That and having trust as my current theme word, just got to keep showing up and doing the things. And
Hard, hard. I love that. I haven't really thought about it in that perspective, like continuing to have the conversations about alignment keeps you from falling out of alignment.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And it's been so present, right? Because we record, I mean, this is our 18th conversation. I think that's been all on authenticity and alignment. And then I also have the opportunity to spend time again doing the edit. So I hear it all again and finding those really juicy nuggets for clips and working with those, it's all reinforced. And it's been pretty incredible.
It has been. And I can't help but think that for me anyway, and I'm sure you feel the same, and I hope the listeners do as well, that there's always at least one big aha moment or nugget or takeaway from every conversation where it's like, oh, yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it. Or I wasn't aware that, Wesley, our conversation with Wesley as an example, the way he explained some of the things that he struggled with really made me self-reflect. Yeah. And
Yeah.
explore it from the perspective of my own journey.
Yeah.
And I found that was very beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even our conversation recently with Avalon and her quote of, we dip low before we grow
Mhm.
has been a really lovely and gentle reminder that is just the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And not for just me, but I share that with so many people now.
Mhm. Yeah. Same. And it came up yesterday in the Artist Way group again. And it's been a bit of a mantra for me recently as well, because with that little reminder and an invitation to trust and to not overthink it,
Mhm.
right? Like go do laundry, put on Netflix, read a book, have a bath, whatever it is. We don't have to be always doing something with the machine that's up here, right? The whole system is working, even if our mouths and our brains feel like they're not being productive.
Mhm.
And when things feel sticky, like I knew last week I wasn't going to burn it all down, I also knew that I needed to find some ways of dialing things back and giving myself room to breathe and room to feel like crap.
Yes. It's interesting you say that. I had a moment of like a close to, but like maybe because I've been through the process so many times now where I have gotten to that point of like, fuck, why am I doing this? I'm gonna burn it all down and go back to a 9 to 5. That this time around, I was like, oh, hey, old friend, I see you. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for the awareness. And I ended up having to cancel some clients one day. I was not feeling good. I think it was 2 weeks ago now. Was not feeling good. And I was like, oh, I'm either coming down with something or this is my body's way of just saying, like, you're not in the right place to sit with all of your clients today. And so they're so gracious and just allowed me to move things around, which was really beautiful. I ended up seeing a client in person instead of online as a result, which was also lovely. And it didn't feel so much like I wanted to burn it down to the ground because I created some space for myself to have a bath in the middle of the day.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And how nourishing from that point forward, as opposed to just pushing and pushing and pushing. And like you can already see how those storylines would play out. Your wise self knows. No. And we do what we do because it's such a priority. It's a requirement. It's a requirement.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It reminds me, like, it comes full circle, I think, back to the beginning of our conversation about this perfect, this idea of practitioners or spiritual mentors offering this idea of perfectionism, or at least that's our perception of it. As I had a supervisor one time, we were talking about cancellations and what feels good, what feels out of alignment. And her expression was that, like, when she was in maybe her first 10 years of practice, like, she would not cancel for anything. Right? Even when her children were really little and they needed her. She was like, the mental health, the priority of my clients is ultimately the most important.
Mm.
And that doesn't feel really, it feels a little icky to say that that shouldn't be the case, because obviously in a lot of cases we are dealing with some very difficult, challenging emotions that are coming up for people, and they need space held for them in those moments. And because I try to be a very practical and authentic human in all matters of my life, my clients know that I'm human too.
Yeah.
And that if a cancellation comes up, it's for a good reason. I'm not going to do it flippantly.
Yeah.
But I can't be my best self if I'm run down and feeling resentful or just overwhelmed. Yeah. But that old mentality is like, I have to show up at all costs.
Yeah.
That's perfectionism.
It is, and it's programming from a system that no longer serves ultimately. And just thinking, when I was a kid, I would never have known if my doctor wasn't feeling well. Like there seemed to be these strict rules around formality, and if this is your job and you're a professional, then yeah, you're going to show up and you're going to give it your all, even if your all really sucks. And then there are people who have done that, and then they come out the other side and they like, no, no, that doesn't work for me. And you and I have talked about this. I am drawn to working with practitioners that where I know them, I see their humanness.
Mm-hmm.
That enables me to trust them. The formality of such separation, a lack of friendliness. And I mean, we're not talking about professional boundaries. I'm just talking about, like, just be you and don't worry about not being the perfect whatever example, role model, professional. It makes it so much easier for people to have compassion for you too. Right? Like, I don't need the excuses. I don't call me up, tell me all the things that are going wrong with you. Just tell me, no, I need space.
Yeah.
That's all I need. That's all I need. Even as a teacher, I would tell my kids, if you need more time, come and have a conversation with me ahead of schedule. We'll find you more time. You don't even need to tell me why. I don't need to know why. We just need to figure out how you're going to get it done. That's all that matters.
What a beautiful offer.
So easy. And then it saved all the negative energy of people trying to come up with what they thought might be a story that compelled me enough to be on their side. I'm already on your side. I don't need to know the details.
So interesting too, how I feel like I've used that word a zillion times in this conversation,
Mhm.
but how young that starts.
Oh, yeah.
I had a conversation with my 8-year-old this week, noticing some shifts in him, of course. And we spoke about math last year, math was something that really triggered his anxiety a lot. He was really nervous about a lot of things. And we spoke about the expectations of the teacher for him to get, 4 pages of work done in 35 minutes. And how do you help an 8-year-old like discern the difference between a requirement, an expectation, and just a genuine desire? Right? And so empowering him to ask the questions or shift his negative thoughts around it to allow himself to just calm down and not put all of this intense pressure on himself so that he can just flow through the math and not worry about it. It's tricky. Most adults don't manage it well, let alone an 8-year-old.
No. And so often when someone outside of us, especially if they're in any realm of power or authority, if they express, even if they're just expressing it as a desired expectation, it often lands as, I need to do this if I'm going to make them happy. And like the cognitive overload is so real. And then when you add into that, if a human body, if that sweet being has sustained trauma or multiple, like every the more trauma, the more energy that is already being used internally to regulate those systems. And so when we hear or receive external expectations, we don't have the same internal capacity to focus and concentrate and to get things done. If things take longer, our brains need to think things out a little longer sometimes. But everybody is still lumped in under the same group of, well, no, everybody can do 4 pages by the end of this class or whatever the case may be. And yay to the people that can get there smooth sailing. I'm sad for the people who get there like that and then are stuck waiting. And my heart breaks for everybody who's trying their hardest and not missing that mark, because we don't celebrate it in the same way. And I think there's a lot to be said for celebrating effort and for creating the space people need to do what they need to do to be successful in what they're trying to figure out. Hence 2 years to create my first book is a really good example of that.
I'm excited to see it. I have ordered a copy.
Oh, yay.
Of course I did immediately when you sent the link. I was like, oh, buy now.
Thank you. It's so funny because I see things like, oh, I would change this, I would change that. Little voice said, no, we're just going to really enjoy it being perfectly imperfect and out in the world. And I'm going to keep working on a new project.
It's your first draft. And
wow.
I recently actually became very aware of KDP and whatever fulfilled by Amazon FBA, and like I'm learning about that stuff. And so I'm looking at other people who produce things like this, and there's no need for perfection.
Oh God, no.
Create something beautiful, and you learn next time what seems like might be a bit more appealing to people, or what's going to give you, a different perspective on sales, and you lean in, or you keep being your authentic self. I'm so excited to see what's inside of it. It doesn't show you yet on the Amazon, like what the journal looks like.
James was able to see it yesterday. I'll have to have a peek. Yeah, because he was able to scroll through, and I was very surprised, but I know I was warned that it might take a little while for that sort of thing to show up. It has been through multiple rounds of review, and I feel so good about some of the changes that I made after getting the author's proof copy, and the things that I look at now probably nobody else would even think about. So I kind of laugh. It's like, yeah, you're always going to be able to find something, but it feels really good. I think I might like to make another version a little bit less maybe bright and feminine, but yeah. And now there's all the other learning, like, okay, great. Now I've got products up there. How does this work? And
there's no rule of like how many books you publish under KDP. You just keep firing them off.
Yeah. I both love and hate that. to be very, very honest. I like old-fashioned books that, we know they're good quality. And I think that's part of the reason why I'm being funny about rejoicing and celebrating and having this one done is because I'm still really harshly judging myself and think that well, it's more bona fide if you've got a publishing house behind you.
Mm.
Yeah, but that's another one of those systems where you have to, figure out how to play the game and why? Not,
Yeah.
and certainly not for some of these beautiful things. I love that how those of us who are inclined can. That's what I'm really grateful for.
I think it's a really interesting opportunity to get your work out there and confront the discomfort of truly being seen in that way, and can just continue to expand from there and grow.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's inexpensive, and someone else does all of that work for you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it really is. My grand self-published a book in the 80s, and she had to have it printed, of course, and we got it done. She got it done at a little local printing company who is actually cousins. I've got family who have been in publishing for generations, but it was very costly for her to do that. She had to buy a lot of stock, and then she had to figure out what to do with that.
Oh,
So she's right now going, yay!
yeah.
If only it had been this easy, she says, I would have sold a bazillion cookbooks. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, we can sidebar and talk about Amazon and all of the
Yeah,
offerings
we totally could.
for hours, which we're not going to do and bore the listeners with. So perhaps we can wrap up with, we're finishing up. Oh, you have a thought.
I'm pointing at your whiteboard. You just can't see.
Oh, the whiteboard's a little spicy today. I'm not going to lie to you.
Ooh, well, that sounds like a terrific segue.
It's a little spicy, and I think speaks to some of the stuff we've already talked about of my desire to purge things and just really show up as the authentic self that I am. I'm going to show it to you and then read it to you.
I
So
love the colors.
thank you. I picked those intentionally. Maybe you can be sweet and soft and a strong warrior badass, and it doesn't say shit about your masculine and feminine inadequacies. Here we go.
Friend,
A little spicy, I know.
a little bit spicy.
Yeah, I know.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. I feel like I need to write that one out myself. Like I need all of the words so that it can land and I can think on it a little bit.
Sure, I'll send you a picture.
Is there a story of the inspiration behind that one? Is it a Sabrina original?
It is there. I just wrote it.
Nice. So it's something present.
Something present. It feels very connected to what I said about, Instagram and just like purging. And I recently, as recommended by one of my mentors, read a book. And well, I read part of the book. I think I got just over half. And I was reading a section. It's all about intimate connection between the masculine and feminine.
Mm.
And I read a section that honestly felt so overwhelmingly unattainable for the average human that I sat there and I was like, why do I like, what is this call to continue to try to live up to this expectation of somebody else's vision of what masculine and feminine represents?
Hmm. Gosh.
I was like, I'm gonna burn it all to the ground and just start over and feel what feels good for me.
Yes.
Mhm.
That example, it's so easy for me to understand what you mean by clean slate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it also is part of the purging of Instagram followings, because there are a lot of practitioners who I've followed, influencers maybe more than practitioners, who really speak a lot about masculine, feminine, and their portrayal of themselves feels like they've just bought another story from another system that is going to 10, 15 years down the road prove that actually we're just continuing to create a divide between us. And I didn't like it.
Mhm.
Didn't like it.
Again, learning from the contrast. I love that. I
Yes.
love that.
I lovingly gave the book back and I said, this didn't feel right for me. Here you go.
Mm.
Yeah. But I did sit with self-judgment for a while. Like, why? Why doesn't it feel good? How come you can't be that person that this book describes that like, it's like, fuck.
Mm.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, I feel like we could go for a whole other episode just talking about that now. Well, we
Mhm.
won't, but I do really appreciate you speaking to that a little bit more. And what a sweet way actually to wind down our conversation on authenticity, because we are bombarded with images of, well, here's one I noticed. Okay, I'm just going to slip this in here because I think I've been watching Hallmark Christmas movies this week because when I'm feeling a little, Hallmark Christmas movies feel good. I've been watching Hallmark Christmas movies for quite some time. It's only this week that I've started to really notice how many of the lead characters are like stick thin. They've got these skinny little legs and high heels.
Mhm.
And it's really standing out in the noise in my brain. I am not that. I am not that.
Mhm.
And I said to James yesterday, I said, it's really freaking annoying because it's just distracting. Like, I don't care. We're all different. We're all beautiful. I'm embodying that. And there's still parts of me that
Sure.
I'm noticing and comparing, even when all of the thoughtful parts of me are like, we're not doing that anymore. Subconscious says, watch me.
Oh, yeah. I'm fighting the same battle. Like throw a curvy girl in there once in a while. Like just
Absolutely.
I I love that you brought that example up because that too has been very present in having conversations about, my physical health and strength and really having a strong desire to get back to a stronger place in my body often comes with conversations about weight and weight loss and all of that fun diet culture stuff. And I was having a conversation with somebody recently who I very much love and feel so much connection to her teachings. And I left the conversation after a comment about spiritual set weight. Yeah, it's a whole, I mean, set weight is like a term used in, I guess, in more intuitive eating spaces where the body wants to go to sort of this 10-pound bandwidth that it feels most safe,
Mhm.
right? And like helping to understand that about your body and feeling acceptance around that can be really powerful. And, there's also a health factor in there too. And so I'm, navigating this internally as I have these conversations in my mind about what health looks like for me, especially after, as we've talked about, like a year of sobriety. I'm like, okay, I feel like I have some more space to focus on some other stuff, and that's what I'm going to do. But we had that conversation, and I couldn't help but feel really unsettled about something. And I reflected, I let time pass because normally I would be very like, I need to confront this. And I was like, no, we don't do that anymore.
Mhm.
And what came very clear to me over time was having a conversation in a safe space with somebody who can relate to you about something is very different than having a conversation in a safe space with somebody who has no experience or knowledge of this area. And what really shone through for me was when I explored how they presented themselves to the world and their offerings, there seems to be a really extreme bias about what a body looks like.
Mm.
And And I scrolled through years of content and was like, that's why. Like, I just don't feel seen in that space because I don't fit that perfect mold of the perfect body that's portrayed in all of their marketing and so forth. And so it was a really, I'm still with it. I'm still sitting with it, exploring it, going like, what's really there? Yeah. So same with your hallmark awareness.
Yeah. All of the years when I was malnourished and had that thin body, I just laugh because there's so much less noise. I would say it's quieter. The fight is easier from this side of it. And now that, how fortunate am I that my body is enabling me to gain healthy weight and and I'm so much stronger. I am so much stronger. And and yet now there's all this noise about not ideal, whatever that means, whether it's, your physical fitness or how it looks, and it's just like, oh, good grief. Can we just not just be grateful for our bodies as they are and trust that if we are loved and love ourselves, that we're going to want to feel good. And if we want to feel good, genuinely, we're going to move our body and we're going to nourish it in good ways and just shut the freaking noise off. But it's everywhere. And so love to the curvy girls because I have been both. And I truly believe that my set weight is a good bit more than what it was for a very long time. And I am welcoming it and shaking my fist at the world who's making me have struggles with that.
And love to the girls who maybe are perceived as more masculine or more feminine, or like there's nothing wrong with any of that. And drowning out the noise of the things that say there's something wrong with you because you're not this way is so important.
It is. It is.
Like coming back to you and yourself and what feels right for you and what feels in alignment for you is where that magical space of I'm no longer hearing that chatter of the shoulds and the coulds and the why aren't yous.
It's a practice. Add that, right? Another one of those things. It's a practice. Every time we notice that, though, we are gifted the opportunity to love and celebrate ourselves. Our power for knowing what's true and right for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're spreading the ripples, right? I think that's a big part of the, authenticity, alignment, all of this means that we have so much more control of the volume buttons, of the radio station dials, and we find what works for us and we leave what doesn't. And yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
This has been a fascinating season. Spring was like, oh, this is new and exciting. Let's do all of the things. And summer was, oh, this is exciting. Let's do all of the things. And autumn is like, I'm really tired from doing all of the things. Can we just chill out a little bit? But our winter season, hoping to get that rolling with Avalon, as we talked about, we have a jam-packed winter season planned. And then we're going to be winding things up.
Yep.
We're going to be winding things up. So officially about 3/4 of the way through this sweet little art project of ours. And so thank you, my sweet co-host, and thank you to everybody who's been often our conversations feel a little bit rambly, but also so good. So thank you for joining us today for that.
Yes.
And yeah, be sure to follow. I've mentioned this before, not always the most consistent. Press follow, subscribe, and then you'll be sure to catch the next episode. I look forward to it.
Put your link of your book in the comments.
I will actually. I think it might be good for both of us to update a little bit, make sure we've got the links that we would be most excited to be sharing right now.
Okay.
I don't know, for example, my LinkedIn needs to be on there. I'd way rather have something more fun than LinkedIn on there, but
No, you're going to put your book and you're going to put your
I
weather.
will. I will put a link to the book for sure. I will. Yeah. And this is the whole new next level. Like, oh yay, I get to share these things now. So thank you for that reminder.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anything, friend, that you might like to say before we sign off with our viewers?
Oh, excited. Like it feels like fall's really officially coming to an end with the shift of the weather and despite the sunshine peeking in behind me. And so I'm feeling very good about starting to think about winter and yeah, continue on this journey of cleansing and purging and stepping into 2025. I'm here for it all.
I love that. I love you. I'm celebrating all of the good purging that's happening. Yeah. Yeah. So good to share this. Okay, friend.
Bye bye.